Hi everybody, Dhaman Mehta here, and thank you for once again joining me on my journey as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. This is basically I said all this stuff in the previous video, but here we go again. Read a bunch of stories, not the ones that I had said I would, but let's just keep going down the list. We're in the middle of July of 2012, so let's start with Experiencing What He Missed by red-jacobson. This is 2 chapters which is basically the start of a post-war Harry Potter story with Harry and Ginny basically literally screwing a bunch of women and building Harry a harem. The first chapter is all smut, and the second is a bunch of plot with a few raunchy scenes, but overall this can just be skipped and never thought of again. It's gonna fall off my list. Number 2 is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Sparrowette. And this is a Naruto story that takes place during the training trip he takes with Jiraiya, where he's left by himself in a town, and Naruto accidentallys himself into becoming the leader of a small town and creating his own army, essentially. The tale is it follows the idea of misunderstandings causing more misunderstandings, with the guy at the center never figuring out what's going on, a la, the man who knew too little, or in fan fiction terms, Make-A-Wish. We get a lot of jumps in POV, so we see both Naruto's simplistic decision-making process and how he's seeing what's happening, as well as everyone else's idea of what's going on. The chapters are also really short. Each chapter is actually 5 different segments. The whole thing is 100 short segments wrapped up in a full story. But it makes it a quick read, so it really keeps everything moving really quickly. The writing's fun, and the misunderstandings are really funny, while also adding depth to the character and character development to keep things interesting. It works as a great story of what might have actually happened during the training trip, and I recommend it highly. It's going to stay on my list. Next, we have Return of the Speaker's Heir by the Potters of the Future. And this is another sequel story where I dropped the original off my list. This is a Harry Potter crossover with Percy Jackson and the Olympians, where Harry's the son of Hades, and he was back to, he was at Hogwarts for a year, so this is literally taking after his first year. Also takes place right during, it starts with the end of the first Percy Jackson book, essentially, him meeting them up with them going to Hades. As I said with the previous story for this one, I just didn't care. This story did not capture my interest, and my eyes just kept sliding off the screen. This time, part of it may have been because I don't remember anything of the first story, so I was a little lost, but I'm still not interested in here. And if you like the first one, you might want to continue with this and its sequel. The sequel's not on my list, so at least now I'm done talking about this story. But I don't care about this, and it's going to fall off my list. Next is The Wagtails Cuckoo by Cyrock. And this is a Fate Stay Night Sekirei crossover, which is this whole thing is this story is basically a prologue to a story that doesn't exist. It's a story where Shiro gets adopted by Uzume, Sekirei number 10, basically right after the fire and during the Sekirei plan. There's a few cute scenes of fluff and a few scenes where the girls learn how broken Shiro is, but overall it's really just a prologue, and the actual story just never is not manifested. It's a nice little piece that I'm glad I read, and I'd say give it a look, but it's not going to stay on my favorites list, as I wouldn't come looking for this ever again. So I'd say give it a look, but it's not going to stay on my list. Alright, now to Danny Phantom with Stranded with My Class by Redheads Rock 1010. And this is a story where Danny and his class get kidnapped by a ghost, and then they get stranded on a deserted island while the rest of the world are actually watching a TV show where the villain is showcasing what's going on. So, the thing with this story is that it is the huge case of blue balls, because the author stopped writing the story basically right as it was reaching the climax, and that is super frustrating. You know, I had remembered this story going in, but it had been many years since I had read it, and rereading it, I was surprised because the author had actually come back and had re-edited many of the chapters multiple times over the years, and I had not seen a lot of the updates. But I like the basic idea, because this is a Danny who's like, he's now he's been superheroing essentially for like 3 years. He's now a senior, and they're all there, but he's still secret. Still nobody knows, and so he's a lot more confident and like focused with himself. But at the same time, he's still got there's a little still drama going on there. A lot of the new stuff that I saw from the updates basically fleshed out both the villain's backstory and actually the background characters, like the rest of Danny's class, and actually the town of Amity itself, and how the government was reacting to the idea of ghosts becoming public. And it was all really, really interesting. It was the thing, like, I really just kept getting into it as much as I thought I would, but it was like so much more than I had initially thought I would. All the background characters actually feel individual, like you can almost tell them apart, and they don't feel just like a homogenous blob of like background characters of RWBY where they're just black shades because they're not important at all. These characters, everybody feels real, and I really wish the author had continued. This story felt really, really good. And yeah, it does feel blue balled. It blue balls you, but like I feel like the drama that's here and the character bits are here that are interesting enough that not only do I recommend giving this a look, I would come back to this again even without a finale, and it's gonna stay on my list. All right. Coming up near the end is Team Unstoppable by Dirty Raid. And this is a Naruto fic where the 3 members of Team 7 basically have gotten a power-up based on many different franchises. You know, here we have Naruto cribbing, Alex Jensen from Deus Ex Human Revolution, Sasuke becoming the Dragonborn from Skyrim, and Sakura getting the Blacklight virus, and based off of the protagonist from Prototype 2. Unfortunately, there's only like 3 chapters here, so it's basically 3 main scenes of the Bell Test, the basically start of the Wave mission, so like the Demon Brothers and Zabuza fight, and then a scene where they basically just go and kill Gato. And honestly, if it was done in certain ways, that could have been enough, but the problem is, unlike the other examples of that premise, this author decided to take it, he wrote it like, I'm going to be more serious, semi-serious and semi-crack, so it's going to be more of a plot-driven story that'll be going forward. But the story is not there, and so we just have this, and because it wanted to be more semi-serious and not just pure crack or pure funny, the story, what's here is not funny enough to be like, oh, I want to come back and see, look at this crazy moment, or like, look at this stupid joke, or what they've done. There's nothing here that sticks out that much. And what's there is just like, you'll get the few scenes and a couple chuckles. It's just not worth revisiting. Like, the concept is fun, and there's like, the author has stated 2 other versions, both of which I've read and seen. One of them I know is on my list. I think the other one might be too, which is Legendary Legacies, A Freak, a Creep, and a Psychopath, which I'm pretty sure I've talked about already, and High Valor's Team Nightmare snippets, which is in one of his collections, which I believe that was already on my list too, obviously. So I think this is not going to stay on my list, but if the idea is funny, especially when you go with the pure crack route, and those two should, if the idea intrigues you at all, you should give those a look. But this is not going to stay on my list. And the last one for this video is A Pet Wizard by Kaint. And this is a Harry Potter crossover with Familiar of Zero, where Louise, instead of summoning Saito, summons a post-Triwizard Harry Potter. There's nothing much to say about this story. It doesn't get very far in the writing. The plot-wise, it follows most, like, the canon bits of just Harry, like, the first, like, 2 episodes where Harry would get Durflinger. The only difference is he doesn't get Durflinger, and, you know, there's a little bit of magic, but it's really not much of a change. And again, it's played straight, meant to be serious, so there's no real fun to be had, which leaves what the draw of the story should be, the plot, which never gets started, so it just feels like a waste of time. Nothing terrible, but nothing worth revisiting or searching out either. It's going to fall off my list. And there we go, another 7 stories read. Still in July of 2012, but we're getting there. I swear I'm going to go faster. Like, I know my 3-year anniversary of doing this thing is coming up soon, and this past year, I've been really slowed down. But I hope I'll start, as I've said many times, I'll try again, but we'll see. But there we go. Status time. Now I've read 759 stories, and 365 of them have stayed on my list. So there we go. As always, links to these stories are in the description down below, as well as links to my fanfiction.net profile and a forum thread on Sufficient Velocity where I post this as well, and a link to the playlist so you can see all the stories I've read. But thank you. If you like this, please leave a like, leave a comment if I'm an idiot or something. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.